All right. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? If you can, just mention something in the questions. If you can't hear me, feel free at any point to add a question saying, raise your hand or say, can't see the video or the audio. But with that, it looks like a lot of us are falling into the attendees list. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Austin Grayjack. I am the business developer and VP of sales over at YouAttest. And YouAttest it's a really neat tool. It's a cloud-based auditing tool. So I noticed a lot of you, it seems like the majority of you all are auditors and you're familiar with SOX compliance and things in that nature. Well, YouAttest came about because we had an issue where auditors were they were coming to us with questions and they were saying, how come it is so difficult and so time consuming to see who has access to what within our cloud-based applications? I don't know if you're all familiar with Okta, but Okta is a very simple cloud-based solution. And they said, how come we could have all of our information stored in here, but we can't have an easy way to view it, make changes to it, and just run simple compliance reports? Well, that is how YouAttest was born. So with that being said, thank you so much for coming on, and I'll try to make this short because I know you're all busy, but I'll show a quick demo of just how the product works. So right here, this is the option to log in. You will simply do so by entering in the domain name that's provided once you register. You can hit submit, and then it's taking you over here to Okta. And why it's doing this is because YouAttest is powered by Okta, so it's tethered with your Okta account. And you enter in your Okta login credentials, and this will allow you to pull information from your Okta tenant and run reports with that. And what we call reports are campaigns. So right here, you can see this is just a list of some past campaigns where we're pulling information from the applications within Okta. And we are essentially seeing a breakdown of who has access to what. You're able to make changes within Okta itself, and you are able to delegate that out to the reviewer, whoever the proper internal control states. This is all done through a very simple API integration. All that's necessary to do this is you just name your API, you provide your Okta URL, and then you have your API key. So there's no on-premise software necessary for this, no expensive setup fees. It is as simple as one API integration. If you manage multiple Okta tenants, you could do multiple API integrations for different Okta tenants. And like I said, it's just that simple. There's no on-premise software necessary. The next interesting feature is just adding licenses. It's very simple. So you could go over here, and this is your license management. You could add individual users as so. You could add them in any increment as you want. And it's only $2 a user per month. So if you just have an audit for 1 month, you could feel free to cancel the other 11 months of the year. There's no long-term contracts. So it's just $2 a user. And a user is any individual within Okta. So we will go back out here, and I'll show you what a campaign looks like. It's pretty simple to run one. We'll create a new one. And right here, we're just pulling the API source, which is Okta. And right here, we'll just name it. So we'll just do, let's do SAP Business Operations Demo. And then right here, we just say, what's the due date? When do you need this audit by? So we'll simply click, we'll select, we'll say, let's do a month out. So make that in the 30th and next. And now this next step, it's gonna ask you, where are you pulling this information from? Which application do you want to see who has access to what? So simply, since we're doing SAP Business Operations, I'll select that application within Okta. And because that's simple API integration, we're able to pull that information from there. And right here, we have a full complete list of everyone within this application. And now we're given a few choices. As the auditor, you could certify, you could revoke, or you could delegate out the individual's access to this application. Now, if you want to select all the individuals and certify them all, you could certainly do so just like that. But say there's some special cases in there. Say, maybe this user is no longer with the company. Well, you could revoke. You could revoke this one. If you have to make a specific comment, you could do so right here. You could say, you could simply just add a note right there. Another really interesting feature is, as I mentioned, say your existing control states that you're not the one that should be reviewing this individual. Well, you could actually delegate it out. And so I'll show you what this looks like. When you need to delegate out a user, you could select a few right here, and then we'll just click delegate. And it's going to say, who are you delegating this out to? Right now, all you do is you enter in whoever is supposed to review these individuals. You just enter in their email like so, and you hit assign. And now this user that we just assigned that out to is going to get an email. It's going to say, hey, you have to verify, you have to finish running this report and test for these individuals. And so what that will look like from their end, I'll open up a different browser over here and I'll sign in on their behalf. And so they'll go through the same processes we just did earlier, except they'll have a different username. And so now, once they've signed into their account and they've linked it with their Okta tenant, they'll go over here to their campaigns and they'll see a little bit different screen. You'll notice there's no option for an API integration. There's no option to add or manage users. It's simply just see the campaigns that have been sent over to you. So it's a little limited view and it allows them to focus on the task that they have to work on. And so we'll click back into there. You'll notice these are the 3 individuals they were asked to certify or revoke a test for. And so right here, we could say, just certify, revoke, and certify. Once they do this, they just go back to their campaigns list and they're finished. So we'll go back to this screen and I will refresh this. And now you can notice that these individuals that we delegated out to have been attested for. So, and it shows right here if it was delegated out. So it's a really interesting feature. It allows you to keep track of, who did what and what the final results were for that. But now that we're finished with the report, we haven't made any changes within Okta just yet. So everyone's been attested for. We'll go back out to the main screen campaigns list and you can double check because right here, here's a campaign that's been 100% attested for. That's the one that we just worked on. Here's an example of one that hasn't been. You'll notice we can't execute. But what executing does on the one that we just completed, it's going to ask you, do you want to make these changes within Okta? Because once you click execute, the individuals that were revoked access will no longer have access to that application within their Okta tenant. And you'll have a record of it as well. So we'll click OK. And now this is making changes within Okta, but once it's finished, we'll go back in. And this is the really important part right here, especially from a compliance point. I know there's a lot of SOX compliance and auditors in here. So finally, what we could do is we could see a printed report of this. And you could save this as a PDF, a CSV file, whatever works best for you all. But it shows you simply what the action taken place was the certified, revoked, when it was completed, what time was this reviewed on, and if it was delegated out to anyone, and then it has a breakdown user by user and which application. So this is really important for your records, just so you all can see, was this delegated out, was this reviewed? And Okta does have the ability to, certify, or it does have the ability to revoke access, but that's limited to certain users. It doesn't have the ability to go in and certify and say, yes, I see this individual and they should have access to this product. So I think that's the really important part of the tool and the final main step. So it looks like I got a question here, and it's asking, are you able to export these audits reports for external audit? You would be able to export out all of these reports. So if we go back out here, if we want to download this as a PDF, Excel, CSV, you can absolutely do so, and then you could send it. So I hope that answers that question. And then, so basically, this is really the important feature, as I mentioned. that this was done all without on-premise software. So we did this all just through a simple API integration, just a simple, we went back over here and that just tethered it to your Okta account and you're able to pull the information from there. So there's no costly on-premise software. And I just see a few questions coming in, and so I want to make sure I have time to answer these. So let's go through here. So here we have a question. Is there a view-only auditor view? So that's a really good question right there. Currently, there is no view-only auditor view. So if I were to delegate this out to an individual, they would have access to certify, revoke, or delegate. But I think that's a really excellent question. The closest thing to a view-only review would be if we did a print of the final product. So as long as an individual has access to this screen, that individual would certify or delegate. The good news about that is, though, as mentioned right here, there is a captured shot of who this was delegated out to and what that action was taking place in what time. So if you do send this out to anyone and they do make changes, that will be captured in the final report. You will be able to see that. So I hope that answers that question there. Another question is, do you need to be an Okta admin to make these changes or to do this? That's a really good question, and the answer is no. You do not have to be an Okta admin to run these reports. You could be an auditor, you could be in the IT department, but you do not have to be the head of the Okta tenant for your company. As long as that's set up for you with the API integration, you could, anyone in the company, as long as they're given access to that, they can run these reports. Great questions. I really appreciate them. So definitely keep them coming. But, oh, another question is coming up. How long does it take to set up an audit? Well, that's really simple. So we can go back over here and we'll go over to the API integration right here. This is all it takes. You just need to name your API. You need to enter your Okta URL and then supply your API key. Once that's done, you are set up and ready to run your audits right then and there. And what we just did by running that demo, running this right here, that was an example of an audit that we just ran. So you can see that took maybe a couple minutes, about 5 minutes to run a complete from start to finish audit and have a finalized report of the product. I'm not seeing any other questions coming in, but at this time, I think it's really important. We're a younger company. We're looking for feedback. We're looking for any sort of early support. So if there's any comments or any sort of questions that you may think of afterwards, I'll be sending out the recording of this. But I really, really value everyone who's participated on this, the great questions. It's extremely helpful. I think there were some good ones in there that we're going to go back, circle with our developer, and we're just going to kind of review this. But we want to make auditors' jobs easier. So if there's something you see that there's potential in this that you want to see in your line of work, we'd be happy to work with your company and with you specifically on developing something that would save you just a little bit of time, because you took some time out to listen to this, and we'd love to save you some time as well. So I really appreciate you all for joining. If there's no more questions, I'm going to wrap things up. But thank you so much for. Oh, it looks like we do have one more question. Hold on. Okay, where do we see individual user assigned credentials? So I want to make sure I answer this correctly, but where do we see? So let's back this up. So if we go over here and we click on the user right here, it'll actually open up and show all these individual, whatever they have access to as an individual. So you can see all the applications. It'll show what their status is if they're on these and what date they were created. So this will be a breakdown user by user. I hope that answers your question. Our developing team is working on a kind of a second step to this, where it's actually going to show within these reports what the user's role is within each application. And so that should be finished with shortly. I hope that answers your question. Let me know if it doesn't, though. Okay, excellent. Well, I appreciate you so much for all listening to this. Like I said, I will be sending over the final demo just as a recording, but I really appreciate your time and thank you so much for sticking on this. And I definitely appreciate your participation. So I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Looking forward to speaking with you all. Take care.